Glare at each other.
Excellent.
So, good morning, Phoenix Comicon. And now that we've had that, we can now say, good afternoon, Phoenix Comicon. You guys having a good time? Okay, everybody know why we're here? Anybody not know the man seated next to me? Not know that he started with a spec script, built it into a huge television, publishing, and comic book empire? Come on, somebody raise their hand and admit they don't know. J. Michael Straczynski, folks, please. This is a spotlight panel. It is all entirely on him. So if you guys just have some questions. Anybody want to get the ball rolling? You have a question? No? Oh, you do.
I can do this.
Oh, you do?
I can do this.
Okay.
The thing I've got really good. I worked in television for years. I can do the finger all day long. I work a single. I work alone. Thank you, though. A nice man, ladies and gentlemen. Were you pointing at a moment ago? Yeah. Yes, sir. Why existentially? Why the name of the show? I really wanted to tell a story. Yeah, I just refine that question just a little bit. The name, or you mean whatever I want it to mean? Why the whole concept? This is my first cup of coffee. That's okay. Well, any writer wants to have their own voice be heard, and wants to have their own story to tell, and we're not someone else's hired gun. The problem with working in television is very often you're working for someone else's show, and you're like an itinerant worker. You go from farm to farm to farm, from this show to that show to that show. You want to have your own story to tell, where it's one vision and one voice. And I mean, obviously you can go too far with that, where it's one vision, one voice, ein Reich, ein Volk, ein Deutschland, and then you're really in trouble. But for me, it was important to have a chance to tell my own show, my own story, and having grown up on science fiction TV shows, that's what I really wanted to do. And I worked on procedurals before then. That's why, like last night when all the cast went off to have dinner with the big machers here at Phoenix Comicon, I was hanging out at the fan panels, because I come from the ranks of fans. I'm as rank as any of you. So for me, it was important to have my own science fiction show. I just wanted, as a kid, I had certain things that I wanted. I wanted to write Superman someday. I wanted to write Spider-Man someday. I wanted to have my own TV show. I wanted to write some movies and some kind of. And people around me say, "You're out of your mind." But oddly enough, all the things that I wanted to do as a kid are the things I'm doing now. And my father saying, "You'll never make a living in comic books, Wrong. So that's the answer to your question on an existential basis. Beyond that, you're on your own. Holding up the program now.
Hi there. A ton of questions. First of all, thank you for...
A ton of questions. In metric or
I would have
American?
a ton of questions, but I'll limit myself.
All right.
First of all,
2 kilotons would be okay.
Thank you for bringing intelligent, serialized television to the U.S. We wouldn't have 24, Heroes, Lost, Breaking Bad, Mad Men, any of these things without what Babylon 5 started. My main question is, looking back at the series now, with a post-9/11 view of the world, things like In the Shadow of Zahadun, for example, where Warden is subject to indefinite detention for all of about 6 hours, prompting the mass insurrection among the command staff, it seems almost quaint. How do you think the show would have been different if it had been done in 2003 versus 1990?
Well, a lot of the show politically is as relevant now as it was then. Particularly if you look at things like indefinite detention and the Clark's tendency to ignore civil rights by creating a fear of a much greater object off to the side of the civilization. When I mentioned last night at the smaller panel I was on, that after we did Babylon 5, I got a call from Bruce Boxleitner, who was at the White House with his wife at the time, Melissa Gilbert, who was then the president of SAG, Screen Actors Guild. And in the middle of this, she was there to meet with other representatives and lobby on in the White House. And in the middle of all this, Karl Rove came rushing into the room and said, right past her, right to Bruce, I said, I want you to know Babylon 5 is the best science fiction show ever made. And the president thinks so too. Which really depressed the hell out of me. Yeah. And well, he did. He learned a lot from it, but he didn't understand President Clark was the bad guy. And yeah, we did kind of set in place the template for the 5-year arc. In fact, Damon Lindelof, who was a casual friend of mine, mentioned that when they sat down to do Lost, they used the Babylon 5 model to create the arc for that story. The funny thing, of course, is that now everyone's doing it or trying to do it. I had a meeting on Network not long ago where I was talking about a 5-year story that I wanted to do, 5-year arc, and the guy who really didn't know my background well said, well, a lot of people come in here and say they want to do 5-year arcs, but they don't tend to pull it off really well. What makes you think you can do it? I said, I invented the motherfucker. Yes, question.
You just had a list a few minutes ago about all the things you wanted to do as a kid. Have you done everything you listed? What's next on the list?
What's next on the list of things to do? That's what I'm figuring out now. I think probably the main thing is to get better at it. I think I'm at a point now I'm just now kind of starting to figure out this whole writing thing. And you laugh, yay, as though I jest. But as you get older, you get to understand how much you don't know about writing. And I think I'm now kind of getting an understanding of how stories can be told in a more interesting fashion. So I think now comes the last stage, which is A, getting much better, B, owning my own stuff. This past July, Pat Tallman and I launched, hello, Studio JMS, which is our own company to create movies, TV shows, comic books, web series, games, the whole catastrophe. And we have our first TV show going ahead with the Wachowskis. They'll be on Netflix next year. We are doing our first movie that we were going to be shooting in the fall, but may have to get pushed to next year for actor availability reasons. We're doing our own line of comics through Image Comics, the Joe's Comics imprint. 10 grand just came out last month, the second issue, which I have an advanced copy of here. Ooh. Everybody go, ah. Everybody go, ooh. It's good to be the king. And it's got, I'll have this at the table. I'll be doing a signing right after this, I think at like 1:30 down the dungeon. And you're walking the page through it and look at, let's have a preview for Sidekick, the next title to come from Joe's Comics. And so yeah, so it's now owning my own stuff and really having my own voice again, but where if there's a movie to be made, it's our movie. If it's a TV series to get made, it's our TV series. We make it our way. If there's any dumb studio notes. They're my dumb studio notes. And to, you know, see how far I can take it. My original plan was to slow down this last couple of years, but we thought of the whole Studio JMS thing, and that was just Pat's name for it. I figured, well, let's go for broke. So I'm actually writing now. I'm busier now than I have been in my entire life, which is great and frickin' tiring all at the same time. So that's the answer to that question. Way in the back there in the white, yeah, you. Hello.
Hello. I got a question I'm going to make you think way back to when you were first doing this, and a few of us had internet, and we had like boards, I think we called it back then. There's only
Yes.
a handful of us on them.
Logging out with a 28.8 modem.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Question, a twofold question. Was that really you on the board every so often under JMS?
Which board?
I think it was just a Babylon 5 board, you know, because you're trying to catch up. I was this mad scientist, I was like freezing embryos. And it was like, okay, damn it, I missed this episode. How do I keep caught up on this thing? And every so often, everybody...
You were a mad scientist freezing embryos?
Yeah, I'm an embryologist.
Intentionally? Willing people, or are you taking them in the middle of the night? Breaking into houses and...
Yeah, I actually got paid to play the biggest first.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Resolve that.
Back to this.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was you or not, but I think so in listening to you. Because I loved how every so often everybody get on these beds of, you know, the secret societies and the this and that, the religious bent of it. Every so often, this person under JMS would go, I just wrote a damn story, get over it.
That may not have been me. I'm never sure I just use the words to get over it. And you must understand that the internet, on the internet, knowledge and access is a form of currency. There will always be counterfeiters among us. And there were a number of folks out there pretending to be me, and I caught some of them. And they did not do well as a result. So I cannot vouch that that was me, unless you can tell me exactly what the board was or what the I can't tell you.
Way back in the early days when there was...
I can't help you, lady. I can't help you. Sorry. I got nothing. I never saw you before. I don't know what the board was. I don't know. I can help you. I'm so sorry. A sensible question. Sir, over here. Don't start with me. I don't even know what she's referring to. Ha-ha! Caught you in the web of logic, didn't I?
Back before the first season of finished airing, you posted on Usenet that a woman had come up to you at a con and kind of scared you by saying, well, based on what we've seen so far, it's apparent to me that we'll probably do this and this and this. And you claimed at the time that she hit most of these points in the mark.
Yes.
Would you...
I had her killed immediately. I can't remember what I had for breakfast. Well, I can't do the general outline of what that conversation was. Yes, a woman had a question. They come up to me and say, based on A, B, and C, I predict you're going to do X, Y, and Z. And she was pretty much correct. But there's nothing wrong with that. If you do a detective story properly, all the clues are there. So that if you rewind the tape at the beginning, everything you need to figure it out was there in plain sight. So consequently, all the stuff was there. And, you know, you've got a whole bunch of really smart people, which is you guys watching the show, each spinning off in a different direction. Sooner or later, someone's going to figure out the right combination to open the lock. So I gave her great props and had someone drop an anvil on her immediately. Red shirt.
I'm just curious.
You certainly are, sir.
Yes, I am. It's a flaw. With the advent of, say, Buffy season 9 or the X Factor or the X-Files season 10 comics coming out, and the fact that you've got your own comic company in the advent, is there any future for Babylon 5 either on television or running the stuff through the comics so that we as fans can get some type of closure to the unresolved plot?
Well, first off, there can never be closure to the unresolved plot lines, because what I did with B5, very specifically, was I wanted to tell that 5 years worth of history. You take, for instance, you know, the 5 years of history in Germany up to, say, Hitler coming to power. A lot of stuff happened after that 5-year history. A lot of stuff happened before that, which are focused on what happens in this slice of time. So there were specific things that were set up that were going to pay off down the road. It's like not like the universe stops with the last episode of Sleeping in Light. You know, those characters are still alive and they're still going on. Those threads are still alive and still going on. So I never wanted to resolve all the threads. And if I never did resolve all the threads, it'd be counterintuitive. Yes, that doesn't gel with me. As far as doing other comics or TV shows in the B5 universe, Warner's has the TV rights to the show, and I have the film rights, and we were kind of the loggerheads, and they're not in any hurry to make new stuff happen. And we tried to negotiate back the rights. We're still trying to negotiate back the rights to the TV side of things. And if we get them, then that's a conversation to be had at that juncture about whether we do more or not. Part of me says it'd be great to go back and revisit that universe, and part of me says, leave it the frick alone. You did it right the first time, don't touch it again. So I kind of go back and forth about the whole thing.
Yeah, I wanted to see how far.
Let's see. Way in the back row, ma'am. Green shirt.
Hello, and thanks for being with us. You sort of, from the perspective of the fan, pioneered or repioneered sci-fi focus on character. Main sci-fi is on people, stories, and all the rest. Since then, it seems that everyone is sort of not moving in shows like the Green Lantern and stuff like that, or even all the superheroes, Batman, Thor, and all that. Could you tell us a little bit about that? How you use the landscape of sci-fi, and what's your take on that? And that people come to you specifically trying to feed off of you, whether it's one or other cities, that you delve into the show, how you influence what you're around.
Well, it's kind of, for me to say here's how I influence it, and here's how important I am in science fiction television, is almost self-aggrandizing. It's true, of course, but better if I answer the first part of your question than the latter part of your question, because that's for others to determine in terms of the legacy of what the show is. Pardon me, I'm getting over a cold. In terms of the characters and character-based storytelling, again, I must understand I'm a fan of science fiction and a fan of good storytelling. And it made me crazy as a fan to see that whenever in science fiction shows in the past, people put on, you know, the spandex uniform or whatever it was, they flushed away their humanity. You know, they became about the plot. It was all plot-oriented storytelling and the device or the thread of the week. And they never took science fiction seriously as something for well-rounded characters. You know, there was the the science person, there was the person in charge, and they were just defeating this big menace, and they might have a line or two that was meant more like a laugh line, you know, about some characteristic they might be annoyed by. And I thought, why aren't these people? And you know, the Trek universe made me crazy because they said we have to be perfect people once we hit space. We're never going to be perfect. If we're perfect, we're dead. You know, when we go to the stars, we're going to take with us our flaws, our eccentricities, our nobilities, our stupidities, our callousness, our kindness. All those things will go with us. And if I ever get my own show someday, I feel like I almost laugh thinking about it. You know, I'm going to do a show where all those elements are still there. Our humanity is still intact, for good and for ill. And we really pioneered a lot of that stuff. And yeah, a lot of shows afterward picked up on it, which is what you hope for. You hope that your work doesn't go into the ether and disappear and have no consequence. And so that, you know, when Ron did the pilot for Battlestar, he sent me the script, that's one of them I thought of it. When Damon did Lost, as I mentioned, he wanted to sort of based on the B5 arc. And you want that. You know, it's a great compliment. So I'm hoping to see science fiction continue to evolve and continue to change and be more character-oriented. It's hard right now because, as I mentioned the other day, the networks just don't take science fiction seriously. And it's hard to get them to move. I mean, there really aren't that many space shows right now. And I've had networks say to me, literally, well, look, the show has to be set on Earth because if If it's happening somewhere else, the audience won't care. Verbatim. And really? You could do you could do a TV show set in Newark, New Jersey, where no one's going to care about what happens, and that's okay. Yeah. So it just, I'm boggled by what I see, and you would think most of these are younger guys in their 30s, 40s, who run networks, and they would come up with shows like this. But they just have this block. When you mention science fiction, they get confused and they fall down. So, yeah, pick them up and dust them off. I'm hoping that Sense8, the show I'm doing with the Wachowskis, which is going to take this even further. Yeah, I mean, imagine the guys who did The Matrix with those 12-story brains, and Cloud Atlas, which is an amazing piece of work, combined with the B5 approach. We're going to do some stuff that is some seriously weird shit. There's stuff we got in mind that would just blow your minds. And it's all of that sort. She's pointing at you. How much are you paying her? Yes.
And was there any discussion about doing anything different than Brand New Day?
Was there a conversation of doing anything different from Brand New Day? No, that story was handed to me by Joe Quesada. So this is what I want you to do. Basically unravel your entire 7 years that you worked on the book. And stupidly, being a team player, I said, okay. And live to regret it. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Who's fucking around with the tricorder? Communicator partner.
Plugged in, not mine.
All right. Yes, ma'am. Back over there.
I'm wondering, with everything you've done, and like script doctoring, and your own comics, your own films, your own television series, what are you proudest of? I know it's like picking between your kids, but what is the message that you feel you've gotten across that you're most proud of to have your name on it?
What message?
Yeah. Or what is something that like you just immediately, yes, this is me, this is my, everything I am is in this, and I'm most proud of it.
Leaving aside B5, which is the obvious answer.
Yeah.
Probably the thing of which I'm most proud, as most evocative of myself, would be Midnight Nation. If you haven't read Midnight Nation, it's a 12-issue book. It's a very personal story, and that book has a lot of morality questions that it raises, and ethical issues, and issues of paralysis. And that's probably, if there's any one thread that goes through my work over and over again, so I'm realizing now if that's true, I gotta stop it, is the issue of free will, choice, consequence, and responsibility. We are told on a regular basis, you can't fight City Hall, you cannot change the world, you cannot buck the system. The flip side of that being, you don't have any choices. I don't have any choices. I have to do my job. I have to go stay in this job and stay in this neighborhood and then work with my family and do things I'm responsible for doing and that people want me to do. I have no choice. Yes, you do have a choice. You can fight the system. And you can win if it's worth it to you to try. And I'm a stubborn pain in the ass. And I've learned, as a kid I was a scrapper. I used to get beat up all the time to the point where I just learned not to give up. We moved 21 times in my first 17 years. So every 6 months was a different school, different neighborhood, different kids. And when you're the new kid on the block, and you got a funny last name, they tear the shit out of you. And there was one school I was beat up virtually every day. And after a while I learned, look, I can't win, but I can make sure that you don't win either. They would just pound me into the ground, and they'd walk off. I'd be mouthing off, They'd come back and they'd pound me some more, and they'd walk off, and I'd still be mouthing off at them. And I would wear them out. They get tired of hitting me after a while. They couldn't kill me, and they couldn't shut me up. You know, so I just learned you fight back, you fight back, you fight back, and you know if your circumstances aren't what you want it to be, change them. If the world isn't what you want it to be, change it. Get up, take responsibility, move. And if there's any one thing in my work and in my life, that's pretty much it. You can make whatever. On Wednesday, this coming Wednesday, I'm going down to Southwestern College for my junior, one of my 4 colleges that I went to. The last one actually booted me out after I got my second bachelor's degree. They said that the system wasn't set up to handle a GPA negative numbers. True quote, by the way. And recently they're giving me an honorary AA. It's a junior college. What do you want to do? Honestly, it's honorary AA. I'm speaking at the commencement thing. The reason for which, I heard back from some people who were at Southwestern College, I was there many years ago, to say that the paper was about to publish an edition, the college paper, about those running for re-election on the board for the college. There was a point to this, trust me. And that would not be favorable to those who were in power. And so those who were in power shut down the paper on the eve of the election, like about a week ahead of time, by denying them funds to publish. So they decided some obscure little rule that you have to get bids every year on printers as excuse to say, well, you can't print. It's petty, bureaucratic bullshit. But they were using it to be tyrannical. I think they had the upper hand. And they were trying at the paper to get money to publish this one issue. And there wasn't time to set up a proper charity so we could donate money. And they were strapped. They were $3,000 some odd short of what they needed to publish the paper. And word of this reached my shell-like ears. And I called them up. So I hate tyranny. I don't care how petty it is, how small it is. Tyranny, we don't get along. And I said, how much do you need to publish it? They gave me the number. I FedExed them out a check the next day. And they put out that issue and bent the entire shape of the election in the right way. Moreover, many of those who were responsible for this, once the article with all the information came out, were later indicted on corruption charges. And those who were elected in their place and put in their place are bringing me down there specifically to say, here's AA. To thank you. So there are a million chances every single day to make a difference. You have to be aware of them, conscious of them, seek them out, whether in your own life or people around you, your friends, your family, those, whatever it is, you can change the world if you choose to do so. If one person with a bullet can change the future in Dallas, and in Memphis, and in the Ambassador Hotel, and with, how much more can one person with an idea change the world? Yeah.
So, total change of topic. You seem like you would be an awesome games master. What's your take on interactive storytelling in the future of interactive?
As far as games go in general, I'm the worst guy in the world. When it comes to that, like role-play games, like Call of Cthulhu and that kind of stuff, I just ignore the rules and do what I want to do, and I just. I don't game much anymore because it's a huge time sink. I think we're on year 2 of Babylon 5 or year 3, somewhere on there, where I got so caught up in Doom that I posted online, if you want to get the rest of the season storylines, give me the cheat codes for Doom now. Put me in fucking God mode, let me get over this. See, I think the game should come with a comfy chair mode. You know, where you go to that level and hit the thing for comfy chair mode, the demons bring you a comfy chair, and you sit down, they fight each other, you watch it, you can walk around, see the really cool stuff, and go to the next level. Who wouldn't want comfy chair mode? You know? So, I think that we're looking at a convergence of interactive and television. And we haven't quite found the right paradigm shift for that yet. I think that one motif for this will be where you can, take Star Trek as an example, just for, we all know that language, where if we're watching the show and as you're watching the Enterprise come to this planet, you get the information about it, you go down, the game components for that episode are being downloaded simultaneously into your system. So by the time the episode is done, you have all the meshes and the character backgrounds and new missions that will take place. You live in that world, live in that adventure for 7 days until the next episode downloads. And then you can play in that. I think that's kind of where things are starting to go. I don't know that for a fact, but I feel that. There's one more shift coming, but I'm like 6 months from figuring it out. There's the problem with the tyranny of the known. There's this great, remember the Buck Rogers serial? There's this great moment when the ship is going down and you gotta evacuate, and says, Buck says, so if you get your anti-gravity belts, you get these slim little silver belts, that could be anti-gravity belts. Get your ray guns, and they get what could be ray guns. Get the portable radio, and they get this box. And they carry it, because they knew what a radio was. And they were limited by that knowledge. They couldn't conceive of a radio this size. So we're still within the construct of the tyranny of the known, and that's right now holding us back. But once someone's going to figure it out, then we'll see what happens. So way off to the side. Way the hell over at the by the wall. Yes, you.
Great. So Jeremiah sort of fell into the ether and everything.
Was pushed into the ether by me.
So I was wondering, is the second season ever going to be released on DVD, or is that just, because I know that there's bootleg DVDs, but I'd rather buy legit.
I know that MGM provided Amazon with these direct DVD where you can go online and order it from Amazon. They can then make fresh DVDs and send them to you that are official. You have those. He has those. So break into his house tonight. And steal that and the embryos. And then go talk to her. Yes, Jeremiah was just a nightmare of ridiculous proportions. It was MGM wanted, Showtime, which is the network, wanted this really dark, mean, vile, nudity-filled, harsh language, coarse, post-apocalyptic show. And MGM wanted a cute, fuzzy, nice, family-oriented post-apocalyptic show. And they could not work it out between them. So I was like caught in the middle. And they had allowed certain members of the cast to have titles which caused them to believe that they were kind of running the show. And every day was a war of attrition on that show. It was just probably the worst experience. I mean, Crusade was bad, but at least it was over in 2013. This was 2 years of putting my face in a blender. So it was, I was so glad to see that show when it was done. I actually stood in the middle of the facility up in Vancouver and screamed, "I'm free," at the top of my lungs when it was done with it. Just awful, just awful. You sir with the camera.
My wife's a high school English teacher, and I'm a technical writer. We both enjoy well-written items. Being a writer yourself, I'd like your opinion what your favorite Babylon 5 script was, the one that you're most proud of, or maybe there's 2 or 3 that are kind of equal, but which episode of Babylon 5 is your favorite from a writer's point of view?
From a writer's point of view, my favorite episodes that I wrote would be, well, Sleeping in Lights is the obvious choice, Severed Dreams, and Intersections in Real Time. Because that one was structured as, a play, essentially. It was a 3-act play. First was a Star Trek communicator, not a woman in a Starfleet uniform. Who sent you? To this day, they're giving me a hard time. So probably Intersection, because that was the one that was a real challenge to do it, a 4-act play. and just two characters in a room, and do it in real time. You know, so that each episode happens in real time, and the networks, Warner's wasn't sure this would even work. They said, you can't just do a play, so trust me, this will work. And so that, as a sheer writing exercise, was probably the happiest thing I did. Yes, Sam?
Hi.
Howdy.
Now, now that you have a studio, is there any chance that you could acquire and like bring to completion local frequency?
No. It's not my stuff.
Well, I'm saying you can acquire it.
I wouldn't want to.
Oh.
It's good stuff, but this is to do my own stuff, to own my own stuff.
All your own stuff.
All my own stuff, yeah.
Eventually, though, maybe.
Did Warren Ellis send you?
Sitting down now.
Not you, but the guy right behind you. Well, I had to find the directions. Nothing personal. I mean, just like I find an individual. I mean, yes.
So you're a fan. Who are you a fan of today?
Does it have an off button? You're trying? Wait a minute, you're in a Starfleet uniform and you can't handle a cell phone? Somehow, that seems apt. Next. Yes.
Who are you a fan of today, picture-wise or films?
Who am I a fan of? I'm a huge fan of the guys who do, well, Stephen Moffat is like astonishing. I watch Sherlock and Doctor Who, and I saw the season finale of Doctor Who the other day, and my first thought was, he is so good, we need to kill him as soon as possible so he won't bleed. Just frickin' brilliant, and the Sherlock show, I'm just in awe of how good that is. I like Dexter a great deal. Like the Borgias. I am the only straight person that I know who watches Project One Way on a regular basis. I can't help. It's a really good show. If there's any writers in the room, it's a really good show for any writer to watch. And I see the looks in your eyes, and I'm saying that to you. It's a mixture of horror and wonder and terror all at the same time. Look, what happens in a writer's head is kind of invisible to the world. It's like happening inside your head. On that show, you get to see all the things that writers do to destroy themselves acted out in textures and fabrics and sequins and zippers. Where you see a person who can't listen to the client, who is so caught up in his own ways and his own, this is what I do, that he can't go beyond that. This is what I do, and they can't step out the comfort zone. That when they start to get to a certain point where they're almost there, they begin to self-destruct. You see all the things, all the shit that writers do and actors do and directors do made manifest. You know, the inability to edit. You know, all these things are so for me as a writer, I just enjoy the hell out of it. Plus, when they're changing the models, it's a pretty cool sequence too, because you get to see them. So yeah, that's my guilty pleasure for Project Runway. You and the black shirt with the red thing on the front of it.
I wasn't going to say this because you told the story.
Let's sit down.
I had a question for you. The story that you told about moving multiple times, having 20 classes, multiple times. I'm glad you told that story. It was really, I had a very similar childhood. I was like every time for my last school door. I mean, just had like very similar stuff. So thank you for that story. We're looking at a lot. The question I have for you though is when you write, especially for comic books, you do an amazing job of bringing adult concepts into those characters without, but yet still making it accessible to younger readers. A good example to me is the most recent
Earth One.
Yes, Earth One. Right, thank you. Where he's struggling with sexuality. Does that have to be
Sadly, it comes easy. I know. I piss off a lot of writers with that kind of comment. Yeah, I think it's important to mix up your box of tools, so different things you're always playing with, so that you have, you know, the funny stuff, you have the serious stuff, you have the adventure stuff that kids can like, and the harder stuff for adults. But for me, I write the things that intrigue me, the things that just get caught in my filter. What's interesting is that how many of you have read the second Earth One books? There's a scene in there where we talk about Clark's cat. And I have heard from more people that they were in tears. How many had the reaction of being really moved by the end of that story? You know, that's because I like cats. You know, and I was looking at my cat and writing the story, and I thought, well, how can I really get the reader to understand A, how alone Clark is, B, his tendency to save those in need, and see that may not last in the long run. So I had him see this as a kitten, he saves this kitten's life, which is also a metaphor for saving the woman in the apartment next door to him. So we're also doing a metaphor and a parallel at the same time. And then seeing the death of that cat and then him burying it on the moon. You know, so he can see it every night. I'm just a softie. So it's hard to say where it comes from. It's just there, you know. But yeah, I never have a hard time working it out. It just comes into my head. Yes, sir, way the hell in the back. Captain America, sure.
I love your Iron Man run. I thought it was incredible. What do you think of the current run by Dan Slott? And would you ever go back to work with him?
I never slam any doors. Well, actually, I do slam. That's a lie. The hinges come off. I really have not had a chance to read Dan's run. It's by my bed along with 10,000 other comics that I need to read. But I hear it's really good, and Dan's a great guy. He's a nice guy. He's a good writer. So I am aware of the whole Doc Ock thing that's been going on, but I haven't actually read it. But I think it's an interesting take that he's done. So I'm very happy with what he's doing. And as far as the future, who knows? Many things are possible. A few things are likely. A couple of things have already happened. Wayne over the blue shirt.
Okay. Joe.
Sir.
I understand Forbidden Planet went bye-bye. Lensman.
Yeah.
Is it? Isn't it?
I was hired by Ron Howard to adapt Lensman, and we did a good job of it. Well, Ron was happy with it. But Universal decided that there wasn't enough name recognition for Lensman to justify the cost, which would be well over $100 million. So it went, they put up on the shelf. And I'm not sure if even the rights have expired or not. That's where it lay. Sir?
Along the lines of this question, what is your opinion on the killing off of Peter Parker in the Ultimate and the ASM universe? And would you have done the same thing?
To the question of killing off Peter Parker in both universes, because I'm not currently reading as much as I should be in those areas, I don't have enough data for an informed opinion. I like Harlan Ellison, I believe you're not entitled to an opinion, you're entitled to an informed opinion, and I don't have one. So I wish I had a better answer for that, but I don't. Great shirt though, by the way. Ma'am, over there. Yes. Don't. No, funny thing is, if a person can be discouraged from being a writer, they should be. Because it means that the level of commitment is not there. A person who really wants to write cannot be dissuaded from this. It cannot be turned aside. Because they know that their survival is contingent on telling stories. So, understanding that, you then have to really work within, okay, what advice do they need to hear to get them from here to there. If a person, can hear the music in their head, you can say to them, make your characters more real, and that's all they need to know. Don't push your characters, let them push themselves. To a person who doesn't hear the music, you give them notes all day and all night, and they won't matter. At risk of repeating things I've said at other conventions, the most important thing for any nascent writer is simply to follow your passions, to follow your interests, and write the stories that matter to you. Don't do, I know people who market analysis. This is what's they're selling right now in the marketplace. This is what they're publishing right now. That's what I should be writing. Horseshit. By the time it's in bookstores or on television, that process began 6 months or a year or 2 years ago. So you're seeing what was hot to buy 2 years ago. The industry has moved on. So you write to what's being done now, you're 2 years behind the curve. The only thing you have of merit to sell is your own unique perspective. The moment you try and write like somebody else, the moment you try and look outside yourself for inspiration, the moment you let your friends or your family or the market dictate what you should be writing, you're done. You're fuck it, you just pack it up, you know? Because unless, the hardest thing in the world is to sit there day after day at a keyboard by yourself and write. And it's hard enough as it is, but harder still if you're writing something you don't believe in. That's the nightmare scenario. And you have to ignore the voices of those who not just want to tell you what to write, but those who don't believe in you. I've, again, recounted this elsewhere. I call it the tyranny of reasonable voices. Your friends and your family, and those who don't want to see you get hurt, who say, don't risk, don't take a chance, what if you fail, don't move to LA, what if it doesn't work out? Because one, they are genuinely concerned about you. Two, very often they're people who in their own lives did not take a chance, did not listen to their own voice, did not put themselves out there, and convince themselves, as we were saying earlier, that they don't have a choice. And if you are perceived to have a choice, and you act on that choice, and you create a better life for yourselves, then that calls them into question. It makes them wonder, did I do the right thing? So rather than have that question come up in their head, they'd much rather say to you, no, don't do it, don't try it, don't embarrass yourself. And you have to be, honest to God, a pain in the ass to be a good writer, because it means you have to listen to yourself above all else. You have to put yourself behind a keyboard at all times. You've got to fight to prove that you can write, fight to survive. It's a mean, vicious process. But if you stay true to yourself, and stay true to the vision you have, and have any talent at all, eventually it'll work out. I honestly believe that, and to this day, I tell every writer, just listen to the voice back here. Not the voices you're hearing, the voice back here. That'll always lead you in the right direction. That's the advice that I would give. The Superman costume. Oh, it's you again. Oh, fuck.
We were talking about how you have a knack to humanize larger than life characters like Superman with the apple, and my favorite was Brave and the Bold and Girls Night Out when Wonder Woman and girls go on Girls Night Out. And, was it your idea to actually put the seed for the name Oracle in there? And also, how much the liberty does DC Comics or Marvel give you with the storylines and their characters?
My deal with both DC and Marvel when I work with them is leave me the fuck alone. I write what I write. And so the Brave and the Bold stories were examples of that, where they just said, do whatever you want. And there was only one issue, one you referenced, talks about how Batgirl got shot, and the night before that they had to deal with that. The only one I thought where there was some question that came up with the editor on the Flash one, where he goes back in time to World War II. Yeah, I know exactly what it was. Yeah, how many read the Flash, Brave and the Bold that I did? It's okay. Flash goes back in time per accident, breaks his leg, can't run, and he finds himself back in Europe during World War II. Again, this goes back to the human question you mentioned earlier. And he comes across the Blackhawks, who are on foot, they're stuck, fighting their way out. And he's in this weird looking costume, but he's obviously an American. At one point, the Blackhawks are in this little house, and Germans are attacking, and they're shooting, and Flash finds a bunch of bricks and throws them to the window, knocks all them out with super speed and bricks. And the lead Blackhawk, grabs him by his lapel and says, "What the hell is wrong with you? This is not a game. They're shooting at us. And we shoot back at them. We kill them before they kill us. That's what war is. And Flash is like, you know, I don't kill. It's not what I do. We're at war. You do what you're supposed to do, or I will fucking kill you. And he has this quandary. What do I do? And he realizes, and he takes off the uniform, finds a spare bag with some clothes in it, and puts on a GI uniform, basically being a part of the army at that point. As the Flash cannot and does not kill. Barry Allen, in wartime, in the uniform of his country, can and will kill. And I had a montage showing, you know, that action going on. And DC didn't want to put a gun in Barry's hands. And I went to the top. Dan, he had a gun in his hands when they were done with it. So that was the only time they ever got in my face on that one note, by him having a gun in his hands. But that goes back to the human question. When is the right time? When are you authorized to kill someone? You know, how does a comic book character's code of ethics about not killing hold up in the middle of a shooting war? You know, those are the questions that I love to explore. And that's what keeps me going as a writer, is a chance to do those sort of things. So as a consequence, they leave me alone. I don't get notes on Superman Earth 1. They know well enough I will bite them if they give me a hard time. So if you hire me, you know what you're getting. Leave me the frick alone. Let's see other questions. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Kind of about demographics and stuff like that. In your own mind, kind of what hasn't been explored enough or at all, like TV and movies, sci-fi, now, or licensing more out there.
In terms of what hasn't been covered yet in television film, my theory is that television film is about 20 years behind print science fiction, as a rule. And if you look at the stuff that Philip K. Dick was doing, things that are really on the edge, that's what I'd like to see more being done now. When they do science fiction, it tends to be very straightforward, procedural, easy to explain, time travel, space exploration. But you take the work of Tom Dish or Phil Dick or others who don't begin with the last name D in their last name, you will find that there's this whole panoply of the New Age science fiction, the New Wave science fiction, that is much more thoughtful. I would love to see more of that being done. To see science fiction as more than just a gadget, more than just a MacGuffin, more than just a methodology. So I hope that in time, maybe in my lifetime, we'll start seeing more of that. I doubt it, because we have, again, the Guardians of the Gate, like at Universal, which is, at Universal there's this black building, it's huge tower where people go in, all the executives are there. It's kind of like the monolith in 2001, but it lowers your IQ when you touch it. So, once we get rid of those guys, then we'll see what happens. Gloved hand.
Once you said, good writers steal, bad writers borrow. And I just wondering what a couple of your favorite source story, and if you ever took an idea just because you wanted to make it better.
It's not conscious. I think you don't plagiarize or go anyway, but just in terms of absorbing methodologies and tactics and techniques. I've learned a lot of methods and tricks from people like Norman Corwin and Rod Serling and Patty Chayefsky and others, which I use on a daily basis, but it's not like I took this story and then wanted to manifest it in a different way. There's a fine line between inspiration and theft. What was the line? Crap. I'll get there eventually. Imitation is the sincerest form of television. So that was Fred Allen who said that. Yeah, writers, to succeed, you have to have a good toolbox full of stuff. And when you start off as a writer, you've got a screwdriver and a pair of rusty pliers. That's all you got. You can only make so many things. But as you learn from other writers and watch other writers and understand how they approach a story, you begin to add more tools to your toolbox that let you tell more ornate, interesting tales. So for me, it's more a matter of acquiring tools than acquiring specific stories. Back there with the hat.
Thank you. And please do what you said about following and viewing. Since you did the sort of silence in space motif with that five, the sort of the hallmark of sci-fi authenticity for everything that's followed, I wanted to know who you steal that from.
Science. Well, the obvious, 2001 is the obvious answer to that. But no, when we sat down to do Babylon 5, my first agenda was we must make this as scientifically accurate as we can. Whether it's sound in space, or it's a rotation to create gravity, the way the starfarers can move this way than that way because of how the physics work. We did the math. We worked out how many rotations that station does, which is 1 per minute, by the way, to give it that rotational spin to create gravity. I'm a science fiction fan. I'm not a soft science fiction. I like the science part of it. So if I'm going to do a science fiction show, there needs to be science. You can't just make I've heard people at the network say, it's science fiction, you can do whatever you want, it doesn't matter if it makes sense or not. Because it's science fiction, you can make it whatever you want. No, you can't. It has to make sense. It has to be logical. It has to be justifiable and rational. And that's why we had that. Yes, sir.
I think that comment, maybe a question for you, is the reason why those executives don't understand that they don't understand the science. And that's the core issue of just our society in general not having good enough science education and engineering. We're on the education front and helping to develop that into that or just into the stories. And I mean, that does inspire a lot of us to get into working in engineering and science fields.
Yeah, I always encourage everyone, to pursue scientific endeavors and be more accurate. I'm a big believer in teaching science in schools and evolution, not that other stuff. Yeah, I think it's very important. And you're right, the executives don't have a background in science, therefore they don't, want to understand it. How much time do I have left? 5 minutes? Okay. So yeah, good question.
I read that you're considering doing an audio play of the Earth from Crusade.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And you mentioned a few days ago that Crusade is a story you're still thinking about telling at some point, that you're still bubbling up and rattling around your head.
Well, I said this still in my head. I was going to go back and tell more Crusade story. That's in my head. So there's a difference. At this point, no, Crusade doesn't belong to me. It belongs to Warner Brothers, so I really can't do anything with it without their permission, and that's not going to happen. But we can't do the audio versions, however, that we're going to do with the last episode of last book of What the Hell Happened in Crusade. We have time for 3 last quick questions. Start with the guy way in the very back row. Yes, you, sir.
Getting back to the science of science fiction, I heard a story quite a few years ago about NASA approaching you
Yeah. Yeah, it is. In fact, I ran into Louise Kleba the other day. Is Alicia here?
Yes.
Where's Louise?
She's here.
No, she's in the room.
Oh.
What part of here is not clear? I mean, we know she hasn't died.
She was on our panel earlier.
I saw her yesterday. That was the point. Yeah. So at least she's with NASA, and she said that what happened was a number of years ago, NASA called me and said we were looking for a design to use for a space forklift, and none of our designs work, but we like the star theory. Could we borrow it? I said sure, but the condition is you've got to call it a star theory if you make them. And it's been kind of in and out of the process for a number of years, and Louise, who works with those engineers, said that it's still in development. They take their time, but that eventually they're going to keep going with this, and they want to talk to me about it some more. So that hopefully someday we'll see star theories in orbit over the Earth. That'd be great. questions, they have to be really, really, really freaking good questions. And so, if they're not, we're all going to laugh at you. No one's putting their hands down. You're a brave bunch. You, sir. Yeah. The video game? No, it's dead. That was not a very good question. Yeah, they were filmed. Yes. It's dead. No. It's dead. Starfleet person, where are you? It's dead. It's dead, Jim. Yes. The thing with the Wachowskis, it's called Sense8. We have a 10-episode. The cop is the last thing to go. Well, actually, I'm the last thing to go. But 10 episodes from Netflix, and it's about 8 characters around the world who wake up in telepathic contact with each other. So, you know, we're shooting the show in Nairobi, China, India, Mexico, and 2 other countries. I see you. And how they react to each other, how they get over their paranoia, and then someone's trying to chase them down and kill them because they're the next step in human evolution. And, you know, it's how they deal with each other and what is that birth of humanity going to look like to these characters. So it's a science fiction series with a touch of a fantasy element to it. One question more? We're done? Or we're done? Or are we done? Okay, we're done. Thank you for coming today. Signing downstairs.
Thank you very much.